Random House Audio Publishing presents The Summons by John Grisham. Read for you by Michael Beck. Chapter 1. It came by mail, regular postage, the old-fashioned way, since the judge was almost 80 and distrusted modern devices. Forget email and even faxes. He didn't use an answering machine and had never been fond of the telephone. He pecked out his letters with both index fingers, one feeble key at a time, hunched over his old Underwood manual on a roll-top desk under the portrait of Nathan Bedford Forrest. The judge's grandfather had fought with Forrest at Shiloh and throughout the Deep South, and to him no figure in history was more revered. For 32 years, the judge had quietly refused to hold court on July 13th, Forrest's birthday. It came with another letter, a magazine, and 2 invoices, and was routinely placed in the law school mailbox of Professor Ray Atlee. He recognized it immediately, since such envelopes had been part of his life for as long as he could remember. It was from his father, a man he too called the judge. Professor Atlee studied the envelope, uncertain whether he should open it right there or wait a moment. Good news or bad, he never knew with the judge, though the old man was dying and good news had been rare. It was thin and appeared to contain only 1 sheet of paper. Nothing unusual about that. The judge was frugal with the written word, though he'd once been known for his windy lectures from the bench. It was a business letter. That much was certain. The judge was not one for small talk, hated gossip and idle chit-chat, whether written or spoken. Iced tea with him on the porch would be a refighting of the Civil War, probably at Shiloh, where he would once again lay all blame for the Confederate defeat at the shiny, untouched boots of General Pierre G.T. Beauregard, a man he would hate even in heaven if by chance they met there. He'd be dead soon, 79 years old, with cancer in his stomach. He was overweight, a diabetic, a heavy pipe smoker, had a bad heart that had survived 3 attacks, and a host of lesser ailments that had tormented him for 20 years and were now finally closing in for the kill. The pain was constant. During their last phone call 3 weeks earlier, a call initiated by Ray because the judge thought long distance was a ripoff, the old man sounded weak and strained. They had talked for less than 2 minutes. The return address was gold-embossed: Chancellor Reuben V. Atlee, 25th Chancery District, Ford County Courthouse, Clanton, Mississippi. Ray slid the envelope into the magazine and began walking. Judge Atlee no longer held the office of Chancellor. The voters had retired him 9 years earlier, a bitter defeat from which he would never recover. 32 years of diligent service to his people, and they tossed him out in favor of a younger man with radio and television ads. The judge had refused to campaign. He claimed he had too much work to do, and more important, the people knew him well, and if they wanted to re-elect him, then they would do so. His strategy had seemed arrogant to many. He carried Ford County, but got shellacked in the other 5. It took 3 years to get him out of the courthouse. His office on the 2nd floor had survived a fire and had missed 2 renovations. The judge had not allowed them to touch it with paint or hammers. When the county supervisors finally convinced him that he had to leave or be evicted, he boxed up 3 decades' worth of useless files and notes and dusty old books and took them home and stacked them in his study. When the study was full, he lined them down the hallways into the dining room and even the foyer. Ray nodded to a student who was seated in the hall. Outside his office, he spoke to a colleague. Inside, he locked the door behind him and placed the mail in the center of his desk. He took off his jacket, hung it on the back of the door, stepped over a stack of thick law books he'd been stepping over for half a year, and then to himself uttered his daily vow to organize the place. The room was 12 by 15, with a small desk and a small sofa, both covered with enough work to make Ray seem like a very busy man. He was not. For the spring semester, he was teaching one section of antitrust, and he was supposed to be writing a book, another drab, tedious volume on monopolies that would be read by no one but would add handsomely to his pedigree. He had tenure, but like all serious professors, he was ruled by the publish or perish dictum of academic life. He sat at his desk and shoved papers out of the way. The envelope was addressed to Professor N. Ray Atlee, University of Virginia School of Law, Charlottesville, Virginia. The E's and O's were smudged together. A new ribbon had been needed for a decade. The judge didn't believe in zip codes either. The N was for Nathan, after the general, but few people knew it. One of their uglier fights had been over the son's decision to drop Nathan altogether and plow through life simply as Ray. The judge's letters were always sent to the law school, never to his son's apartment in downtown Charlottesville. The judge liked titles and important addresses, and he wanted folks in Clanton, even the postal workers, to know that his son was a professor of law. It was unnecessary. Ray had been teaching and writing for 13 years, and those who mattered in Ford County knew it. He opened the envelope and unfolded a single sheet of paper. It, too, was grandly embossed with the judge's name and former title and address, again minus the zip code. The old man probably had an unlimited supply of the stationery. It was addressed to both Ray and his younger brother Forrest, the only two offspring of a bad marriage that had ended in 1969 with the death of their mother. As always, the message was brief. Please make arrangements to appear in my study on Sunday, May 7th at 5 p.m. to discuss the administration of my estate. Sincerely, Reuben V. Atlee. The distinctive signature had shrunk and looked unsteady. For years it had been emblazoned across orders and decrees that had changed countless lives. Decrees of divorce, child custody, termination of parental rights, adoptions, orders settling will contests, election contests, land disputes, annexation fights. The judge's autograph had been authoritative and well known. Now it was the vaguely familiar scrawl of a very sick old man. Sick or not, though, Ray knew that he would be present in his father's study at the appointed time. He had just been summoned, and as irritating as it was, he had no doubt that he and his brother would drag themselves before his honor for one more lecture. It was typical of the judge to pick a day that was convenient for him without consulting anybody else. It was the nature of the judge, and perhaps most judges for that matter, to set dates for hearings and deadlines with little regard for the convenience of others. Such heavy-handedness was learned and even required when dealing with crowded dockets, reluctant litigants, busy lawyers, lazy lawyers. But the judge had run his family in pretty much the same manner as he had run his courtroom, and that was the principal reason Ray Atlee was teaching law in Virginia and not practicing it in Mississippi. He read the summons again, then put it away, on top of the pile of current matters to deal with. He walked to the window and looked out at the courtyard where everything was in bloom. He wasn't angry or bitter, just frustrated that his father could once again dictate so much. But the old man was dying, he told himself. Give him a break. There wouldn't be many more trips home. The judge's estate was cloaked with mystery. The principal asset was the house, an antebellum hand-me-down from the same Atlee who had fought with General Forrest. On a shady street in old Atlanta it would be worth over $1 million, but not in Clanton. It sat in the middle of 5 neglected acres 3 blocks off the town square. The floors sagged, the roof leaked. Paint had not touched the walls in Ray's lifetime. He and his brother could sell it for perhaps $100,000, but the buyer would need twice that to make it livable. Neither would ever live there. In fact, Forrest had not set foot in the house in many years. The house was called Maple Run, as if it were some grand estate with a staff and a social.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?